Okay, we're doing a few more examples of solving formulas, and they're going to get a little bit more interesting now. And some of these I'm going to, well, I'm just going to be quiet for a minute. Some of them I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do them. Okay, but before we begin, I want to notice something about dividing. And there is a shortcut for dividing. So suppose we have something really ugly that looks like this, 3a over rs divided by 5. Well, let's figure out what that would look like, because if we just tried to, let's do it over here on the right, if we just tried to say, oh, divided by 5, it's getting very complicated. So we want to avoid that. So what can we do? Well, as you know, 3a over rs, division, you can change any division you want to multiplication by also flipping this guy behind the division sign, so this becomes 1/5. And the result of that would be 3a times 1 is 3a, and in the bottom rs times 5 is just 5rs. So the shortcut is, when dividing by something, it just ends up, and I'm speaking very casually here, it ends up in the denominator. If you want to go through this whole process that we went through here, you can, but notice when you're dividing by something and you've got a fraction, it's just going to end up in the denominator. Okay, another thing I got to point out, if I asked you, what is 2 times 3 times 4? What's your answer? Okay, many of you, I'm hoping, would get 24. Now, how'd you do that? Did you divide, or did you multiply 2 times 3, and then you would get 6, and then multiply that times 4? Okay, so the point I'm making is, this 2 in front, you can multiply it times this guy, and then multiply the result times what's left over, the 4. Or, let's see if we did it another way. We could multiply the 2 times the 4 and get 8, and multiply that times 3, we would still get 24. Or, if you wanted to, multiply 3 times 4, get 12, and then multiply that times the 2. In any case, you're going to get 24. The moral of the story is, when you multiply, when it's all multiplication, you just multiply 2 numbers at a time, or 2 things at a time, and then multiply the result of that by the third. The reason I'm making a big deal about this is because students sometimes confuse that idea with when we have something that looks like this. 2 times, but it's not 3 times 4, but it's 3 plus 4, and that makes all the difference in the world. And remember, that means the 2 gets multiplied times everything, but it's because of this plus. So 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, so we would get 14. And if we do that problem just another way, because you know I just can't leave well enough alone, 2 times 3 plus 4, well, we can add that inside there, and we would get 2 times 3 plus 4 is 7, and in either case, we get 14 as our answer. So just remember, when you're multiplying, you just have to multiply 2 things, and that's the result. Okay, let me make some space here because I want to show you where that's going to come up in these next few problems. Suppose we have a problem that looks like this, and we wanted to get rid of that 5, 6. Well, the way to get rid of 5, 6, since it's being multiplied, is to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So I can multiply both sides by 6/5 by 6/5. And what's going to happen? These are going to cancel, and all we have left is ABC. You don't have to multiply the 6/5 times A, the 6/5 times B, the 6/5 times C. When you're multiplying, you can do 2 at a time, just like we multiplied 2 times 3, and that result times 4. Okay, so let's see some examples where we're going to be using that. All right. Ooh, we're getting a little bit more complicated. We're solving for A. And I'm going to do this problem in 2 ways. I'm going to do it the short way, and I'm going to do it the longer way. Either way is okay. We should get the same answer. So if we're solving for A, We want to see in our last step A equals who knows what. Okay, now I've got some things to say here. Do you see that we cannot subtract B from both sides? So do not write that down. Okay, do you see why? Does it make sense to you that we can't subtract B? And how I see it, we can't subtract B because this B is inside these parentheses, and those parentheses have that 2/3 in front, so it's being multiplied. So it's just too locked away. Okay? So B is inside those parentheses, so we can't really subtract it. So let's get rid of that. Say we don't want to do that. Okay, so what's another option? Well, let's get rid of the 2/3 first. How can we get rid of 2/3? Well, multiply both sides by 3/2. So we're going to multiply this side by 3/2 and this side by 3/2. And let me make that a little bit clearer as a 3/2. Over on the left, our result is 3/2 k equals, and this is what I was talking about. It's this times this times this. So let's go ahead and multiply these together first. Okay, and when we multiply 3/2 times 2/3, we get 1. So 1 times, we don't really need that. And what we have left is A plus B, and it's still in parentheses, but now, are those parentheses working or are they cosmetic? They're cosmetic because we don't really need them. So I'm going to get rid of them since we don't need them. Okay, and now I think it's pretty easy to see what we've got going on here. We are still trying to solve for A, who's in the way. B, what's it doing? It's adding, so what are we going to do? Yeah, we are going to subtract B from both sides. The results of that would be 3/2 k minus B equals A, and our final step is, since we didn't use all of that room, A equals 3/2 k minus B. Okay, another way to do this. A lot of times students, and let's go back to the original problem, a lot of times students, and it makes sense to me, want to multiply that 2/3 times everybody. So we can do that. So we would have k equals 2/3 A plus 2/3 B. We're still trying to solve for A, so we want to get that by itself, so we get rid of this first. So a result of that would be, we're going to subtract 2/3 B from both sides. K minus 2/3 B equals 2/3 A. Okay, it's not looking very much like this other one. Let's see how close we can get them. So how are we going to get rid of that 2/3 in front of A now? So we're still trying to solve for A. Let's circle it. So I think everybody knows we're going to multiply both sides by 3/2. So 3/2 times this entire side equals 3/2 times this, and do you guys agree that 3/2 times 2/3, that's going to go away, so we have A. And then I'm saying, but that doesn't look like what we have here. Well, let's multiply it out. 3/2 k. Multiply this, 3/2 times 2/3 is 1, so we have minus B equals A, and just like always, our final step is to rewrite that. So the moral of the story, I think you can see this way is a little bit longer, and you're going to have more chance to make a mistake. So remember, you can get rid of this first. Okay, I think I've got to go to the next video. I will see you in 3.5C.